Welcome back. Of course, there is some hope out there that the pace of this pandemic will continue to improve. We are seeing across the country businesses being allowed to move into the next stage of our reopening, different in every jurisdiction. And today we learned from the province of Alberta its own blueprint for a fiscal future amid some very province-specific issues, as well as this broader economic malaise. All of it adds up to, of course, the need for a clear view of where we go from here. Andrew Scheer is leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Thank you very much for being with us, Andrew. And one place I want to start is you have recently made some comments about CERB and expanding it in a way that allows for a back-to-work top-up. It's something that Manitoba is doing at a provincial level. Just give me a sense of what you're suggesting there and what kind of feedback you've had from the government about it.
Right. Well, as you know, Amanda, right now, if you make $1 more than $1,000, you lose the entire CERB benefit. That's a real problem for a lot of people who work in precarious work, shift workers, people in the hospitality, restaurant industry, because they may have accepted some shifts and they may want to be going back to work, but they may have a lot of fear that their business will be able to continue to offer them work. So it's a real challenge to continue taking work later into the month, knowing that you could be worse off. So what we're saying is what the government should do is they should change the CERB to make it more flexible, more generous, allow people to keep up to 50% of it while they make more than $1,000. So that way they don't have to worry if their boss calls them and cancels their shifts for the last week of the month. They'll still be out ahead, better off for having taken that work. And this will help address some of the challenges we've seen where we have high unemployment, but also in many sectors, many areas, also a labor shortage.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does seem to be a problem that's emerging. We hear you talk to businesses, we talk to businesses, we know it's real. But just in terms of the top up and how it works, additional cost, of course, is something that is of growing concern to many. This is a program that's already north of $50 billion. So how concerning is it to think about extending it, which might be necessary? I mean, we are hearing from many in industry that this may go on longer than we think. But how do we pay that bill?
Right. Well, and as you mentioned, this obviously does make it. Our proposal would be more flexible. It would add about $3 billion to the cost, but we believe that this will help alleviate the need for that type of program to exist long term, getting more and more people back to work, taking shifts, earning income from the private sector, getting over that barrier to get back into the workplace will have huge economic benefits. Mm-hmm. That's really what we need right now, is a look at where is the federal government's plan to support a recovery. And this is one of the things that they can do to help remove a barrier to work, to allow for more economic activity. When we look at other programs like the wage subsidy that are very much undersubscribed, there's still a lot of money that was earmarked for that. And because of flaws in those programs, the money's not flowing out the door. So what we're saying is to take some of that money that you've already had allocated, make the CERB more flexible. You're going to see more people re-enter the workplace. You're going to see more businesses reopen, and that's going to have huge benefits, huge dividends over the medium term.
We will get a fiscal update on July 8th. It's not clear at that point how forward-looking it will be in terms of coming back to balance. We know that will be on people's minds at some point. Should it be on our minds now, or is that a later problem? In other words, we're still talking about raising the cost of things like CERB.
Right. Well, I think right now we really do need to focus on making sure that the programs that have been announced are improved. Remember back in March and April when the Liberals were recalling Parliament for a day at a time and saying we've got to get these programs designed and money out the door quickly. And in the Conservative Party, we said, okay, but we'd like you to come back to them and make improvements as gaps are identified. To date, they haven't done that. They haven't made this change to the CERB that we've been pushing for. They haven't fixed the wage subsidy. You still need to have experienced a drop of 70% in order to qualify for the rental subsidy. That's an incredibly high barrier. But going into the medium term, we do have to have a plan to get back to some kind of fiscal responsibility. When Fitch downgraded Canada's credit rating, they pointed to the massive deficits that had been accumulated before the pandemic hit. And that rating agency also said that there is a risk for a further downgrade if Canada does not demonstrate to the lending community that it has a plan eventually to get back to balanced budgets. So we're very cognizant in the short term. We've got to get through the rest of this pandemic and support an economic reopening. But if we don't have, if as a country, as a federal government, we don't show that there's a plan to get our books in order, we could see further downgrades, and that's going to lead to higher borrowing costs.
We do, though, have a lot of uncertainty around how long this recession will last, how deep it is. There is a fear that you could get any sign of austerity or pulling back too early could do untold damage. Because we don't, pandemic aside, there's going to be a recession that follows this, and we have yet to see just how many businesses don't survive, how many consumers face bankruptcy, but we know that's still in front of us, Andrew. So how do you make sure you don't go too far, too fast on the austerity side?
Right, and I guess I would separate that into two distinct but very important issues. One is just because you get a grip on wasteful government spending doesn't mean that you're going to experience austerity. We remember the $12 million the Liberals gave Loblaws, the $50 million they gave to MasterCard. There's a lot of waste going on in government. $35 billion infrastructure bank that has yet to build or complete a single project. So we need to have a view towards eliminating waste and ensuring that we're getting efficient government, good return on investments for taxpayers. And then the second piece of that is we have to have a plan to attract growth and investment from around the world. Canada will not be emerging from this pandemic all on its own. We're going to be competing against the US, Europe, Australia, Japan, every other country in the world that has experienced a shutdown and the economic consequences of that are going to be fighting to attract capital into their country. So what we're going to be pushing the government to do is to say, here's what Canada is going to do to make sure that the investment community sees a great return on investment from Canada. That doesn't happen when you're raising taxes. We've got payroll taxes going up in this country, carbon taxes going up. We've got the escalator tax on excise taxes. So we need to have an aggressive campaign to make Canada the most attractive place in the world to invest in. Under this Liberal government, we don't see that.
I do want to ask you about another file that's obviously a pretty big one for Canada, and that is the China file, but specifically in this case, Michael Spavor or Michael Kovrig. All of these calls that have come from senior officials, past and present, saying, the government should just move this aside and let Meng Wanzhou go. What would a Conservative government do in this circumstance?
Mm-hmm. Well, we would have stood up for Canadians. Over a year and a half ago now, these two individuals were detained illegally. Justin Trudeau has done precisely nothing to stand up for ourselves. We proposed pulling Canada's investment in the Asian Infrastructure Bank. That's a development bank that's controlled by China, that China uses to expand its influence. Why would Canadians want to see their tax dollars go to build infrastructure projects in other countries anyway? Never mind the fact that this is done to give the government of China even more influence in the region. We need to rethink our relationship with China. This is only going to get harder. It's not going to get any easier if we don't take action now. We need to be partnering and rallying around our allies when they are targeted, like what happened with Australia. We've had many of our trading partners and allies singled out, and China puts economic measures to bully other countries, and we need to stand up for ourselves and work with other countries who are experiencing the same type of difficulty with China, so we can be there to support each other, so that when the government of China takes another step against Canadian interests, we've got that support, we've got other options when it comes to selling our products and services.
All right, we'll leave it there. Andrew Scheer, great to have you with us. Appreciate your time today. Andrew Scheer is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Well, Canada's ambassador to the U.S. Says that now would be the worst time to impose new aluminum tariffs, and specifically that the damage that it would do to manufacturers would be very high. Have a listen.
Our perspective is that there is no doubt that our manufacturing sectors and our aluminum sector, among others, are feeling the challenges of the economic downturn that's being caused by COVID. Everybody's feeling that, and we're all adjusting to that. And so now's actually the time that we should be working together, and we should be mutually reinforcing. It's not the time to start putting into place expensive additional tariffs that are just going to jack up the prices for our manufacturers.
That was Kirsten Hillman, our ambassador to the U.S. Coming up next, it is no secret that the mental health of Canadians has taken a toll during this pandemic lockdown. What does that mean as workers get back to work? And in particular, what does it mean for their productivity? Stay with us.